Becoming a more confident person is a very uncomfortable journey, and today I want to share with you the process that I went through to become the most confident I've ever been in my entire life. Because I was someone who was very, very shy growing up. I had no social skills. I didn't really have a lot of friends, and I never got attention from people. And when you don't get acceptance from society, you tend to feel a very low sense of self-esteem, which I did for most of my life until I discovered the things that I'm about to share with you. Before we talk about how to become more confident, we have to first define what confidence is. My definition of confidence is when you feel that the likelihood of you delivering on something is very high. This is my definition. So if I believe that I go on stage and I'm going to deliver my message, I am confident in my ability to do so. If I feel like when I'm going to speak to my manager and they are going to give me that raise because of how well I've worked, I am confident in that outcome. So the confidence that I feel is based off of my expectations and based off of my history of delivering on my expectations, delivering on the promises that I've made for myself. So when you think about the phrase having confidence in, I have confidence in this person to be able to do X, Y, Z. I have confidence that they will do A, B, C. What you're saying is, I expect them to do this. So where does this expectation come from? Where does this confidence come from? It comes from your past history. It comes from the beliefs that you have about yourself. So if you are someone who has never spoken in front of an audience before, or the only time you have, you got terribly nervous and you've never done it since, the only evidence you have of your public speaking is when you step on stage, you don't do a very good job. So then you don't have a lot of confidence in your ability to perform really well because you simply don't have the evidence. So one thing that I was lacking in my life growing up when I didn't have a lot of confidence was the evidence to support the fact that I was a confident person. So let's first talk about where this confidence comes from. We're going to talk about two main things. We're going to talk about internal and external. Let's talk about external first. External confidence is when you acquire something that other people will now perceive you as a confident individual. Let's say public speaking. You are someone who has now acquired the skill set of public speaking. When you step on stage, you do really well. People are captivated. They love your stories. Now they can associate you with being a confident person. They can have confidence in your ability to speak. So what you have done is you've gone out, you have found skill sets that you have learned that portray yourself as a confident individual. So in other words, what do other people perceive is confidence in a human being? They speak well, they have strong body language, they're not afraid of speaking their mind. These are all confident traits. So when you learn these externally, other people will associate you as someone with confidence. So this just means you have to bridge a skill gap. Now within this, you also have something called contextual confidence. Contextual confidence is you are confident within the confines of this specific situation. Let's say you are an amazing public speaker. You can stand on stage and you can speak to millions of people. But then when you are in a networking event and you're stuck with one person and you have to talk to just them, not an audience, and you have to keep the ball going back and forth in a conversation, maybe you get nervous. Maybe you don't know what to do. Maybe you're so used to speaking on stage where you can just talk for 30 minutes, go through your slides, that you don't know how to speak in a conversation because you don't have that contextual confidence. So sometimes people are really comfortable in certain areas, but when you change their context, all of a sudden they're not confident. So for me, I was very confident when I was speaking to my friends, when I was playing video games and talking on the microphone. I was super confident. But you take me to a networking event and all of a sudden I have no confidence. I don't know how to talk to people. My skill set just disappears. So what happened here? Did my skills of conversation just disappear? My confidence just disappear? No, it's just I wasn't comfortable in that specific context. So this is where people vastly underestimate how much learning is required in order to truly master, in order to truly be confident at something. I've seen so many people who attend one of my public speaking workshops, and at the end they'll say, oh, I'm a good public speaker now. There's nothing more for me to learn. I'm good. But they don't understand how much more there is to learn when it comes to contextual learning. Yes, you're confident now talking to your friends. Maybe you can give a presentation at work, but when you're meeting new people, when you have to persuade other people to your way of living, your product, when you have to go and date and still persuade people that you are a good enough mate, all of those things require confidence in a specific context. So remember, when you are learning a new skill set, it's not just learning the skill set, it's learning to apply it in different contexts. Then let's talk about the internal confidence. This is something that I struggle with the most. You can go out there and you can get all the skills. You can have the best body language. You can have the most amazing voice. You can be the most good-looking guy in the world. But I know people who have all of those things and they still feel empty inside. They still feel like they're not confident. Why? Because of up here. Because they don't feel confident internally. So what they do is they try to compensate by going outwards and getting some sort of recognition. So winning, for me, this was winning public speaking awards, or having clients tell me how amazing my coaching is, or doing a speech and getting a round of applause. Now I feel like externally, hey, I've gotten validation. I must be good at it, right? And I feel very good in that moment. And then a few minutes pass, a few hours pass, a few days pass, and what happens? All of it tumbles right back down, and I'm questioning myself again and again. And that means that for me, I did not have that internal confidence. I did not feel that I had high enough self-worth where I could trust myself to deliver. It was always like, will I do well in this presentation, or maybe I won't do? I don't really know. It could be hit or miss. But here's what I realized. My relationship with my confidence was heavily tied on two things. One, the promises that I made myself, and two, the conversation that I had with myself. So let's talk about the promises. A long time ago, I was in a conference and I met an individual by the name of Vic Lindell who asked me a question. He said, if you had an appointment with a doctor at 9 in the morning, what time would you show up? I said, I don't know, 8:45, 8:50. Like, okay. Let's say you have to drop your kid off to school at 8 a.m. What time would you get them to school? I'd probably get them around the same time, 8:45, 8:50. Okay, great. Now, if you had an appointment with yourself in the morning at 8 a.m., how often do you wake up at 8 a.m.? How often do you make yourself the promise that I'm going to go to the gym today? I'm not going to eat this pizza. I'm going to work on whatever's important to me, but then you don't do it. If you want to have self-confidence, if you want to have your own respect, which is the key to internal self-confidence, you must be able to deliver on the promises you set to yourself. Because the fastest way to feel a complete lack of confidence in your own abilities is to make promises and not deliver. Because what happens then, if we go back to the definition of confidence, it is you will not believe that the likelihood of you doing it is high. So if you've been someone who's dieted in the past and you said, oh, I'm going to eat super, super clean, and then you don't do it on day one, maybe you do it for a day and then you fall off, how much will you trust your own ability to ever stick with it? How much confidence will you have in yourself? Not very high. So for a lot of us, including myself, what we do is we set goals and then we don't deliver on those goals. We don't act on those goals. And this erodes our self-esteem because now we know we can't trust ourselves. If we can't trust ourselves, then we can't trust ourselves when we're presenting in front of people, when we're meeting new people, when we're trying to go out on dates and impress people. We're just not going to trust ourselves. So constantly when you are doubting yourself, doubting the likeliness of something happening, that is when you can see an absence of confidence. So what we need to do is we need to increase the likelihood of us doing what we promise ourselves to do. And the goal here is not to do it well, it's just to do it. You don't want to say, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lift the heaviest weight today. You're not going to say, I'm going to go on this date and I'm going to make sure I marry this person. You're not going to say that because it sounds ridiculous. So you want to remove yourself from the end goal. However, you want to promise yourself the process. I will go ahead and do this. As long as I go and do the thing, I am happy. Then you start building up this bank of evidence that when I set my mind to something, I actually go and do that thing. More times than not, when I say I'm going to try XYZ, I will do XYZ. Your confidence is directly tied to the promises that you keep to yourself. Now, the second thing I want to talk about here is internal self-talk. This is another one of those things that I have suffered from the most. One of the things that a lot of people experience is that their beliefs about themselves and the world are shaped by the people that they were around as kids. So for me, when I was growing up, my parents were going through some financial difficulties. So the messaging that I had around money was very negative. That money is bad, all people who have money are evil, or if you want to become rich, you have to do something that's illegal. So I started to believe those things and operate from that belief. I believe that if I make more money, I'm going to be an evil person. So I never tried to make more money. In fact, I would try to distance myself from money. And this is because of the beliefs that I had as a kid. Another thing for me, when I was a kid, I was very skinny. I was borderline anorexic. And it was a very, very depressing existence for me. I did not feel comfortable going out. I did not feel comfortable people seeing me. I also had messed up teeth, so I had to get those fixed. People would make fun of me, and I just did not want to be visible. So what is the messaging that I'm getting from my environment as a child? The messaging that I'm getting is, you are not enough. If you show yourself, you're so hideous that we're going to make fun of you. So it's better if you just stay in. So when I'm repeatedly getting those messages all day, every day, especially as a child, when our beliefs are very malleable, they get ingrained in our head. We start to believe the things that we hear repeatedly. Even if they're not true, you hear it enough times, you tend to believe it. So I started to believe, I'm just not confident. I'm just not deserving of respect. I'm just not deserving of friends. I will never do anything special with my life. I'm just going to live and die a below average human being. That was a belief I had. So when you develop that belief from an age of 5 years old, 6 years old, and now you're in your 30s and 40s realizing, hey, I've got to change something here, what's happening? What you're trying to do is unlearn all of those things. All of those things, and it does not happen overnight. It takes a while. So a few things that really helped me, two things, you'll notice two things for every point I mention. One is I created an entirely different person in my head whose sole responsibility was to have me doubt myself. So here's what I mean. Let's say a company reaches out to me, and this happened to me. A company reached out to me and said, hey, we want to fly you over. We want you to train all of our executives in this industry. And this was an industry that I had never worked in the past. What is my brain saying? Hey, turn it down. Don't embarrass yourself. You've never worked for this company before. There are too many people, too much in the line. Don't do it. Yap, 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 yap. All of these negative things. Now, even though there's no evidence to support that I won't do well, I haven't even met the people yet, nothing has even happened, my brain is already trying to talk me out of it because it wants to keep me safe. It knows if I don't leave the house, I'm completely safe, so it's in its best interest to keep me at home. But that's not how I'll achieve my potential. So I know there is an entity in my brain whose sole focus is to sabotage me. Sole focus is to derail my dreams. That's all it's responsible for doing. And my role is just to recognize that this is happening. It's just to recognize that, hey, every day you're going to get a thought around XYZ. Or maybe you can name this person Bob. Every day Bob, I'm sorry if you're Bob watching this, every day Bob is going to come and tell me that I'm not enough, that I don't have enough skills, that other people are better than me, and I can't do this correctly. My job is to make sure Bob and me are not the same. They're different. I can differentiate. So instead of saying, I feel like I'm not going to do well, what I tend to say is, Bob is trying to convince me that I'm not going to do well. That subtle shift makes a huge difference because now you don't believe it because it's not you thinking it's someone else, and you don't want to let them win. You don't want to fall for them. So I'll give you a quick analogy here. Let's say you went to school and the first day of school, a bully came to you and said, hey, you're so ugly. Maybe that first day you might have been, hey, that's a pretty negative thing to say. I feel bad about this. And the second day, they came at the exact same time and they said, hey, you're so ugly. Third day, you're so ugly. Fourth day, you're so ugly. Eventually, day 10, 20, 30, the bully is not going to go away, but the way you react to that situation is going to be very different. The stimuli has not been removed, but your reaction has been numbed down because you know it's going to happen. Here's the thing. When we can expect something, when we know something is going to happen, it's a lot easier to deal with it. So for me, with my negative thoughts, the way I like to deal with my negative thoughts is I just make them a separate entity, and I realize, hey, whatever Bob is saying, is this helping me get to where I want to go? No, remove it. I don't need it. I don't need to argue with it. I don't need to go back and forth. I just accept it. This is not a narrative I want to inherit in my life. So I'm just going to move on without it and move towards my goal. So this happens every day. I get negative thoughts before I get on stage. I get really scared. Oh, you'll bomb. People won't like you, blah, 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 blah. But I realize, hey, this is Bob trying to sabotage you again. There's no truth to this. Over time, you learn the tricks of your mind. The second thing that has really helped me out with my internal negativity and internal confidence is changing the messaging that I have. So like I mentioned, a lot of the beliefs that you have been repeated throughout your life. So as a kid, you've been consistently told something. Maybe you were very outgoing and extroverted, and then your teacher shuts you down. Your parents said, hey, don't talk so loudly. Maybe you were with the wrong group of people who did not accept you. The messaging you're getting over and over again is, hey, shut up, don't talk. Hey, shut up, don't talk. Don't go out of the house, stay at home. So what we now need to do is reverse that. Instead of the repeated message of negativity and you're not enough, you repeat the message that you are enough. Now, here's the interesting thing. I have never been a big believer in affirmations and telling yourself, I am confident, because what happens to me, whenever I do that, I feel like I'm lying to myself. You are rich. You have $10 million. You are the most confident person in the world. Immediately, my brain is like, nope, that's not true. That's not going to happen. That changed when I forgot what book it was. I'll link it in the bio, but it talked about how in order to remove these limiting beliefs, we have to replace a repetition in our life with new repetition that's positive, and that comes through affirmations. So what I would do is, the book suggested this, do something where you're not consciously thinking. Because if you're consciously telling me, you are a millionaire, my conscious brain is saying, what are you talking about? I don't agree with that. I don't have that money. It's arguing with it. But the book mentioned, do something that's just distracting. So let's say you're working out, playing video games, or doing something completely different, and you're just listening to your affirmations in the background. What's happening is the device in the front of your brain, which is responsible for making critical decisions, which is responsible for saying, yes, I like that, I don't like that, which is responsible for evaluating, that part is busy playing the video game, is busy working out. So now all of the affirmations you're listening to are going straight to your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is where you make most of your decisions. All the impulse beliefs that you have, those are all sitting in your subconscious. So the book argued that if you use affirmations long enough, not consciously, but while you're doing something else, it doesn't take a lot of your time because you're already doing the other thing. All you have to do is plug in earphones and listen to it. I remember what the website was called. It was called Self-Talk Plus. Go check it out. And it really helped me. It really helped because now I could feel that, hey, when I'm saying these same things over and over again, at a certain point, I start to believe it. I start to internalize it. I start to replace a lot of my negative thoughts. Instead of saying money is bad, I'm like, oh, I'm earning more and more money. I'm looking for more and more opportunities. And if you find that, hey, this seems a little sketchy, you want to replace the affirmation you listen to with something that you'll believe. So if you're going to say, I am worth $100 million, I am worth $100 million, and your brain the entire time is saying, nope, that's not true, nope, that's not true, change it. I am making an effort to become a millionaire. I am on my way to earning $100 million. Now you know, hey, I am on my way. I have focused my attention on that. Repeat that. Repeat that. It's constantly the front of your mind. Now, another thing that's really helped me out is the concept of visualization. I was listening to people like Conor McGregor, Novak Djokovic, Michael Phelps, and they all talked about how before they even step on the court or on the field or wherever they operate, they've already visualized themselves in that moment so many times that when it comes time to perform, it's automatic. It just happened. A lot like when you try to tie your shoelaces now, you know you can just do it. You don't have to think about it. It's automatic. So your brain can operate the same way when you visualize. Now, going back to the definition of confidence, which is the likelihood in which you think something is going to happen, when you have seen something in your mind's eye over and over and over again. And then you finally are at that place where you have to perform. The uncertainty of that situation is a lot lower. And if the uncertainty is a lot lower, the doubt that you feel is a lot lower too. And therefore, your confidence is a lot higher. So I'll give you an example. Before I step on stage, I close my eyes and I visualize myself on stage. I'm on stage. I'm going on with my presentation. I even picture people on their phone, someone's on their watch, someone's walking in the door later. And I visualize how I'm feeling in the moment. What am I looking at? How am I performing? I run through the entire script of my presentation in my head. This is how I'm going to start. These are the first words in my brain. And I try to visualize the audience's response. I do that so many times, and in so many different variations. Someone's not paying attention, someone raises their hand to ask a question, someone does this, someone does that. I visualize that so many times that by the time I step on stage, everything that I'm afraid might happen, I've already seen in my head. It is not new. I expected it to happen. Therefore, my confidence in that situation is a lot higher. Because you can't always go to that situation physically. If you can, that's amazing. And experience it prior. For example, if I could go on stage a day or two before the week leading up and rehearse every day on stage, that specific stage, I would be so comfortable. But you don't always have access to that. So instead, you can just visualize in your mind, visualize the venue, even if you don't know, and just think about that every day. Think about that every day. And when it comes time to perform, you're ready. Now, in the same way, I did the same thing for my personality. I would visualize every single morning. In fact, I had a sheet called the identity sheet where I wrote down every single aspect of my personality that I want associated with me in real life, some that I don't have now. I would write those down, and when I would wake up, I would read that document, I would close my eyes, I would bring the images in front of my mind, and then I would open my eyes 5 minutes later. All I would do is visualize it for 5 minutes. And then at the end of the day, right before I sleep, I would review that document again. I would visualize it, and I would go back to sleep. So what happens when you visualize your ideal self again and again and again and again and again? What happens when a message is repeated? You start to believe it. You start to believe it. It's the same way when you're trying to learn a language and you go to that country and you're just surrounded by people who speak the same language. You tend to learn much faster. You tend to absorb that language. You are the average of the 5 people around you. But I'll also say, you are the average of the thoughts. You are the average of what goes on in your mind most often. So if you are surrounding yourself with, this is the ideal version of me, this is the ideal version of me, this is who I want to be, because it's always front and center in your mind, it just accelerates the process of developing your confidence, because you've seen everything that's unexpected, and you've also seen everything that you want to see in yourself as a confident individual. That reduces the uncertainty and increases the confidence. So visualization has been huge for me. 2 more things that I want to talk about real quick. The first one is faking it. Should you ever fake your confidence? I'm going to give you maybe a controversial answer, which is yes. But change the definition of what faking it is. A lot of people, including myself, when I'm coaching people public speaking, I tell them, try to talk like this, try to raise your volume, and they'll always say, this is not natural to me. In fact, for me, talking a little bit slower like this, taking pauses, this is not natural to me. But where does your natural self come from? Where did you learn to speak? When you were a child, you didn't get handed a book at the age of 2 years old. You just learned from what you heard around you, what your parents spoke like, what your siblings spoke like. So you become an average of the behavior around you, what you act like, how you sound, all the things that you do. So essentially, the way we speak, the way we operate is learned behavior. It is something that we have acquired. Now, guess what? Anything that is learned can be unlearned, and it can also be replaced. So if you think about your entire personality as a combination of learned behaviors, all of a sudden it becomes very acceptable to realize that, hey, I don't like this behavior. Let me remove this behavior and replace it with this one. Now it sounds very logical. But because we've been doing it for so long, We associate these behaviors with our identity. This is not just a behavior I have, this is just who I am. And when you say things like this is just who I am, it makes it very hard to change. So instead, you want to think about yourself as a person who has this accumulation of behavior that can be changed anytime, like Lego blocks. You take one out, you replace it. So in that sense, when you are faking it, what you are trying to do is experiment with different behaviors. So let's say you're someone who mumbles a lot, right? You talk like this, hello everyone, what's going on? People can't hear you. They constantly say, hey, can you talk a little bit louder? You might think in your head, if I try to talk louder, if I try to speak more clearly, that's not natural to me. But wouldn't that be a silly thing to say? So instead, what you could do is say, I'm going to fake opening my mouth a bit more when I talk. When I talk, I'm going to exaggerate how wide my mouth moves, at least in practice. Now, while I am doing this, I look very, very silly. But when you do this consciously, over and over and over again, what you train your mouth to do is open up more. So as you continue to train, eventually this becomes embedded in your mind and it just becomes a natural default way you've done it. Because what have you done? You have taken a previous behavior, removed it, and replaced it with a new one. Instead of mumbling and not opening your mouth, you have replaced that behavior by opening your mouth really wide, and all of a sudden, you sound much better. So if you can learn to fake, or rather adopt different behaviors and try them. Don't say, hey, I'm going to try this and this is just me forever. Try the behavior for long enough till it becomes natural and say, hey, do I like this? Does this make me feel better? And you do this all the time anyway. So you have a personality, okay? And then when you talk to your mother, your father, you're a certain way. When you go to a job interview, you're a certain way. When you're going out on a date, you're a certain way. So you're constantly evolving. Is that to say, oh, this is not authentic? This is not the natural me? No, this is called having social acuity, social calibration. You know how to adapt your personality to the situation that you're in. This is the exact same thing you're doing. So instead of saying, I'm faking it, what you're doing is you are trying on behaviors and seeing which one benefits you. So one of the best things you could do is fake it to find the behaviors that suit you the most, that make you feel the most confident. Now, one last thing I want to leave you with is the concept of imposter syndrome. Now, this is something that has plagued me for a very long time because when you don't have a lot of self-esteem, when you don't have a lot of certainty in your behavior, you don't have a lot of confidence, you feel like you're a fraud, or you feel like people will discover that you're not very competent, or you don't have enough experience. And I'm going to give you a really strange place that I come from when it comes to imposter syndrome. I used to feel extremely insecure about everything. Socially, that I don't have enough money, I'm not good looking enough, this person has this car, this person has this job, they can get this girl, I can't get. I would feel insecure about it all the time. But then I realized, first of all, this is all Bob doing this, trying to sabotage me to keep me safe. But the second thing is, a lot of people in life, even at the highest level, are extremely incompetent. I have seen executive level people who have absolutely no social skills, who don't know how to manage their emotions, who get angry like a child when something doesn't go right, or people who can't even send an email, or people who, when they're presenting, they have absolutely no idea they are boring their audience to tears. And these are people at the top level. But I'll share a quick story with you. I once had a client who wanted to get better at public speaking in the workplace and said, hey, I want to develop my skill set. I want to get better at this. And at the time, I was a very new public speaking coach. I did not have a lot of experience. And when I had a VP booking a call, I said, oh my God, it's a VP. What am I going to teach a VP? I'm not a VP. I don't know anything about being a VP. But he booked a call with me and said, yeah, sir, I just need some help with public speaking. If you can just give me some tips on how to talk to my team, that would be amazing. So I said, sure. One of the things that I do with my clients is I give them some questions on the spot, ask them questions, just see how they speak. I evaluate their speaking style. So I did that with him. And he started answering the questions and answering the questions. And eventually I realized I see a pattern. I saw a pattern that it sounded like he was making up the answers. I wasn't really sure why. I didn't really know how to help him. So I said, hey, just out of curiosity, is this true? Did this actually happen? And he said, no, I'm just making this up. And I was a little confused in the moment. So again, I didn't know how to help him. So I said, I'm curious, why did you choose to make up an answer as opposed to just telling me you didn't know the answer? And he thought about it for a bit and he said, well, I don't want to look weak. I'm expected to have all the answers because I'm the leader. My delegates, my subordinates, they look up to me and they need to know that I have all the answers. Okay, that makes sense. I'm thinking, is it worse to not have all the answers? Or is it worse to tell people you have the answers and then make something up? And after that, he said, you know what, Yasser, let's continue this discussion another time. I got other things to do. We'll continue this later. Now I'm thinking, oh my God, you screwed this up. You shouldn't have questioned him. What are you doing? He's a VP. Who are you? What are you doing, man? This was your only opportunity. See, you're not good. Blah, 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 sabotage. And then a couple of days later, he asked to get on a call again. And I'm very, very surprised. Like, oh, I thought I blew it. And he gets on a call with me. He's like, Yasser, when you asked me that question, it made me very insecure because I realized that as a child, I wasn't really given the opportunity to be wrong. I always needed to have an answer. Whether it's the right answer or wrong answer from my parents, from my school teachers, I always needed to have an answer. So I have developed this instinct of coming up with something to say, even if I don't know. But now, after talking to you, I realized I'm doing a disservice to my team. I am trying to protect myself by having an answer. And I'm doing a disservice to the rest of my team because I'm not giving them the accurate information. In fact, most of them can probably tell that I don't know, and they can tell I'm making it up. So if I am doing that as a leader, my team is going to learn from that behavior and do the same thing. So Yasser, thank you so much for that. I'd love to continue working with you. That story is so important to me because it single-handedly taught me when I didn't have any experience to help this person, the only thing that I had was curiosity. The only thing I had was just asking questions around why he's feeling the way he's feeling. And it also taught me that people at the highest level have imposter syndrome. People at the highest level, in fact, they feel more imposter syndrome because more people look up to them as if they're a leader. They look up to them for direction. So if you are feeling imposter syndrome, remember, everyone at every step of the way has felt it. If you are feeling imposter syndrome, it means you are stepping in a new part of your life that requires challenge, that requires you to amp yourself up and get ready. So when you feel like, oh, I can't do this, this is not me, that is exactly what you're looking for. Because if you don't have discomfort, what you have is you in your comfort zone and you can't really grow from there. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, remember, there are many, many people out there who have less experience than you, they're less trained than you, they're less good looking, and they still have more confidence. So do not tie your self-confidence with what you have achieved or what other people have achieved. Simply believe you are here for a purpose and believe that you are worthy of receiving what you are receiving. I hope this helped you become more confident, and if you'd like, leave in the comments below what you would like me to talk about next. Go check out some books that will help you become a more articulate speaker and make you more confident.